welcome back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective, and thank you all for sticking with me through all these episodes. As I've mentioned in the past, I started this podcast as a way for me to share my story as a parent, my wife, and my older children when our daughter JC was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2020. Being able to do this has given me a way to share my story in a very raw and unfiltered way, and aside from what social media does, which really doesn't allow us to share things that we want to. But in the past year, I've had the honor of having some amazing guests and organizations and families to share their stories and missions in a way, again, that is unfiltered and allows you to see the insight to their organizations and really grow this incredible army of advocates that are going to make a difference, because people can't not listen when there's this many voices speaking together. So today, my guest is the CEO and founder of Rally Foundation. And if you have been to CureFest or heard of CureFest, you have heard of Rally Foundation. If you have been to the March to the Capitol, you have heard of Rally Foundation. And maybe a special guest speaker was at Rally Foundation's, I'm just kidding. It was me, but it was fun. And it was an exciting honor to be able to do that. So today, my guest is Dean Crowe, the CEO and founder of Rally Foundation. Thank you so much for being here. And please tell us about yourself and Rally.
Well, thank you for having us. And you actually were a great speaker. So we are thrilled that you did that. So thank you for sharing your story and JC's stories and for all that you do for childhood cancer. Greatly appreciate it. So as you said, I'm Dean Crowe, and I am the founder and CEO of the Rally Foundation for Childhood Cancer Research. And our focus is to really fund early stage research and hopefully see it all the way through to it becoming a clinical trial. That is our goal. And we love to see other people come in and fund with us and fund the research as it grows and develops up. And then we do some family support. And as far as family emergency funds, we take meals to the hospital. And then we also have a clinical trial fund. So if there's someone trying to get their child to a phase 1 clinical trial, we have a travel fund that helps with that. So that's kind of Rally in a little bit of a nutshell.
And it's amazing. And there's so much more. If you were able to go to the website, rallyfoundation.org, and you can see why it started, how it happened. And it's so simple, but yet so incredible at the same time. Everything starts with a question. What can I do to help? But yet the question went further on which I love, and I'm not going to make you dinner because this is so far past dinner.
Yes.
And so much within this community is people are afraid to ask the question, what can I do to help? I think because they don't think that they can do enough to make a difference, or maybe dinner is not enough. Whereas the simple things are often so much more appreciated, but you took it a step further and decided, not only am I not going to do this, but I'm going to do this, and we're going to make a difference. We're going to end this, and we're going to find a way to fix it. And that's what I would love to hear more about, because that to me is so incredible, honestly, that statement alone.
Well, it really started. My husband was coaching a travel baseball team. He wasn't the manager, but he was one of the coaches. And there was a boy on the baseball team. His name was William Olson. And he and my husband, Reed, just kind of struck up this friendship. And then after the season ended, they were in 8th grade. William was diagnosed with a medulloblastoma, which is a brain tumor. And Reed was involved. And he had, William had surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, all of that. And then about 18 months later after that, so now they're in high school, William relapsed. And that's kind of when I got involved. I was teaching a women's Bible study, and a couple of the moms who went to the same school as William, they had children at the same school. Our son went to Pope High School and William went to Walton High School. But the travel baseball teams are kind of made up of all different kinds of kids. And so that's when I started getting involved with what was going on, is when one of my Bible study moms said William had relapsed. And so kind of fast forward, there was one Sunday where, this is back in the day where everyone communicated through Caring Bridge, really. And so Nancy, William's mom, had posted a Caring Bridge post that William had a horrible reaction to a transfusion. And they really were scared that they were going to lose him, but, he was doing okay. And I remember coming inside after reading that update, and I remember telling Reed, I said, I feel like we're supposed to go to the hospital. And so he said, okay. So I called Nancy and said, we'd like to come. And she said, that'd be great. And when we walked in, so by now our kids are probably juniors in high school. And when I walked in, Curtis, I mean, the dichotomy between our son, Jonathan, who was a junior in high school, and William, who was like lying in the bed having almost, died, it was just startling to me. Now, I had seen William throughout when I was involved, but I'd never seen him really that sick. And I remember looking at Nancy and I said, wow, I knew this was bad. This is so much worse than I thought. And you're going to have to tell me what to do to help you. And I will not make you dinner. We're past dinner. And she looked at Reed and because they actually knew Reed better than they knew me. And she said, he said, tell her what to do or she'll drive me crazy. And so she said, raise money for childhood cancer research. And I was like, I don't want to be offensive, but billions of dollars is spent on cancer research. So William was a pitcher and she said, yes, but not on childhood cancer. And I said, there's a difference. And she said, yes. And I go, well, what's the difference? And she said, well, I don't know, but I'm telling you there's a difference. And I was like, okay, I was a journalism major. I'll figure out the difference. And I said, so you want me to raise money for brain tumors, right? And she said, no, I want you to raise money for all the different types of childhood cancer. Every family in this hospital, they need help and they need hope. So I was like, okay, so you want me to raise money for all different types of childhood cancer for this hospital, right? And she was like, no. And I looked at William. I said, I'm 0 for 3. Your mom just struck me out. She said, I want you to fund the best research you can find. I don't care where it is. Just fund the best. And I said, okay. And then I looked at William's dad, Lee, and I said, what can I do for you? And he said, you can feed the families in the hospital. They're hungry. And I said, well, the hospital sends food to the room. And he said, for the patient, but not for the families. He goes, now Nancy and I are fine and we can get food, but not all the families can. So I tackled the research part first. I thought that I would really probably just, go and ask some of the super large organizations to fund more childhood cancer research. And that didn't go so well. So I figured maybe there is a problem. So I figured out that, and this was back 19 years ago, that adults get breast, lung, colon, and prostate cancer, and kids get, solid tumors, a different kind of leukemia. They get different brain tumors and that type thing. So, and truly it was underfunded. And so unless the private sector stepped in, it was going to continue to be underfunded. So that's kind of how it started because we realized like there really was this need. And we were part of a prayer circle for William. There was a group of women that would meet every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 in William's driveway and pray them through treatment. I would say it went on for over a year, and I would say I probably averaged once a week. And it was in that you kind of started hearing about more kids, and you learned like how like childhood cancer is just how devastating it is. And so we were making sure that the Olsons were prayed for, that they were fed, that their grass was mowed. We were, as a kind of group, making sure all that was happening. But we wanted to do more. So one thing that I kind of knew and Reed knew, that's my husband, is if we wanted to do more, then other people would want to do more. If we could provide them with a way to do more, then that's what we felt like that the grassroots would come up and help support the efforts. And that's what we found has been true. But sometimes I do call Nancy and say, can I bring you dinner? And she's like, no, I'll bring you dinner. I'm like, okay.
Well, it truly is amazing what that the kids that are going through it, and I can speak from our own personal connection with JC, obviously, but every kid that we have met and every family that we've met, although they want help, for their child and, to get better, they always want everybody else taken care of. And the kids especially.
Yes.
The kids, it's so incredible, right? They're so, the children are so genuine and their hearts are not full of anything except for love and innocence. And all they want to do is help everybody else. And when you ask, what can I do? It's help them. It's get something for them. It's, I want to do this. I want to create this. And, I just actually spoke to Abba Sunflower yesterday and the things that she does for the kids in the hospital. And, we've met they do this all the time. And it's like, you're going through something rough too. You could use something. No, I just care about them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The focus is always on the kids. And then I would say the focus probably expands to the other kids in the family, the siblings, what they go through and, all of that. I always say it isn't the child that's diagnosed with cancer. It's the family.
Right. Right. It is an absolute family diagnosis,
Yes, yes,
there are many, many, many resources for the kids, and there should be.
yes,
There are not as many for the siblings and for the parents and things that there are, especially through CureFest. It is growing every single year, right? And now
yes,
there's more avenues for that. But everybody deals with it differently. I have two older daughters, and our oldest daughter, she doesn't really get immersed in all of this and doesn't really kind of take that role. She honors JC in her own personal way. But
yes.
our 16-year-old, she is gold all the time, and she's going to be a child life specialist, and she takes on that role, and everybody deals with it differently. But it truly is incredible, and I love hearing the speeches, and I love hearing the kids. But I would say, and maybe I don't think anybody would disagree, that your speech at CureFest every year is probably one of the more spirited ones, because you get to tell us all the amazing
Ye-
numbers for that year.
Yes,
And I
which
don't
is
even know if the ones on the website are completely up to date at this point. But it's, just, let's just say the small numbers, right? $35 million in research grants that have been awarded, or another small number, $223 million in funds that you've advocated for and secured through
it's
federal funding. That's huge. And
huge.
and it's incredible, because that means that that's going to fund the next level of research, the next level of changes that are in the positive, that we struggle so hard for every single year to get these funds. And we should not have to fight so hard for them.
No. I think, our funding. So when Rally started, we met with several different doctors, and it seemed like, they really encouraged us to do early funding for fellows and then young investigators, as well as senior investigators, but to really make sure that we targeted some money to the fellows and to the young investigators, with the thought of, these are the future. This is the future that could cure cancer, for childhood cancer. But if we're not funding them when they're young in their career, they're going to go on and do something else. So we really have remained kind of true to always making sure that we fund fellows and some young investigators. And it's been very exciting to see their research grow. Every grant that Rally makes, that entire $35 million, has been dual peer reviewed. So we have two experts within childhood cancer review each grant, and then it's averaged. The two scores are averaged, and it's like golf, low score wins. So what I'm real proud of that. What I'm probably super duper proud of is we make our grants through Proposal Central, and they have an algorithm at Proposal Central. And if you're in the research world, that is kind of what the doctors use, and they're all very familiar with Proposal Central. So it's almost like the Google, if you will, or the Amazon of research grants. But they have an algorithm that will show you, what is your $35 million, what other people have funded it, and what is that investment turned into. And our $35 million has turned into an additional $500 million in research funding, which is, I'm super proud of that. I think it just speaks totally to the quality of the grants that we're funding, and that we really are making a difference with what we're funding personally as Rally. And then we love to collaborate with other people, and then we invite other organizations to fund with us, and then we do fund with some other organizations, because I think we're stronger together. So that 35 million is really very exciting, and very exciting to see where it has grown to, and then where those researchers' careers have gone. It's been really fun.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of people strive to reach those levels, but it's, the funding of the new researchers. We had an idea, and I still would like it to happen at some point, working with the UW, college system down here.
Yeah.
And when I was speaking to them to try to, get this idea through, and, maybe it'll happen at some point, it was my target again, was the new students coming in, the new
Yes.
people that haven't had a chance to really be swayed into like kind of the normal path. Like, I want them to take the path less traveled. Like, that's what I want. I want them to research these very rare brain tumors, like what
Yeah.
plagued our daughter, and these very
Yes.
rare cancers that, childhood cancer. And so I have to preface this, not rare. The only time I'm going to say rare is the fact that some of these are very, very limited populations that they affect. And that's what I want them to attach. I want them to go after those types of things and say, this tumor, it hasn't been viewed by anybody. It's literally the samples are collecting dust. That's what I want those new students to
Yeah.
come in and go after. So it's the same thing. You getting those young researchers or those young students that are coming in. That's your best path forward with really creating something that is going to be amazing moving forward.
Yes. And I would say, like if you wanted to fund that, to do that with Rally, what we would do is we put out an RFP and say, we're looking for someone to fund who wants to research this particular type of cancer. A lot of times we do this with extremely rare tumors. And then we put out the RFP, and then that it goes through our entire process. And it has to be, viable research that gets a great score. And if it doesn't get the score, then we don't fund it, because the last thing you want to do is research something and throw away your money and it not be like a really viable research project. So that's one thing that Rally brings to the table, especially for those super rare cancers, is we still put it through the whole rigor of our system. And some really great things have come out of that. But I think it's super important that the research that we fund, because those dollars are so precious, that they do. And it's funny, when you put out the RFP, the request for proposal or the request for an LOI for a specific cancer that is, really maybe more of a rare, you do get those young investigators who want to do that. And they're excited by that. And so that it does work to the advantage. So would love to talk to you about that if you're interested.
Of course, it's and like I said, it's so our daughter's brain tumor was choroid plexus carcinoma, and most people have never heard of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I found one doctor in New York that actually secured a grant from the DoD to research it more. And that's one in the country that I was able to find. And so it's one of those things where I know that our daughter's brain sample or her tissue samples are still in storage at the hospital where she was treated. And I want those studied, and I want to come to a conclusion that, our mission obviously is to change the world in a very impactful way. We couldn't save our daughter, but we could save so many others with the legacy she left behind. And that's what we want to do. So I am, believe me, so open to collaboration any way that we can, because funding for this type of research could lead to so much more. And it's always about that. It's never, I always say that I'll never stop until I see our daughter's name in lights, because that's what she deserved. But it's not about the accolades. It's about giving her the respect, and all these kids the respect that they demand, honestly.
Yes. And they so deserve it. When William, like I mentioned in the beginning, was diagnosed with a medulloblastoma, at the time when he was diagnosed, it was just a medulloblastoma. And now through research, there's 4 groups of medullo. And then according to what group you're in is, 1, your prognosis, but 2, also what treatment responds to that group of medullo. So I think as we've decoded the genome, and to your daughter's cancer's, point there, and we know what to do with these tissues now, or we know more what to do than we did, years ago. It's a huge step forward. And then you never know what you discover for your daughter's cancer that's going to affect other cancers, like you were, mentioning, which is really kind of like a win-win in a horrible lose-lose situation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I had the opportunity to actually tour a lab at UW where they were studying neuroblastoma, and the actual research that they're doing. There's several things that it's almost like it's just kind of happenstance through the research that allows them to say, well, this could treat this too. And so absolutely. Yes, I want CPC figured out, and I want people to understand it. But if it could lead to so many other advances and opportunities, then by all means, because I don't want, this is one of those things where, as an organization like ours or like Rally, I don't think we want to be in business. I think we'd rather go out of business.
Please put me out of business.
Right. So that's where we want to go. We are the absolute antithesis of a business. We don't want to have to do this, but at the same time, there's so much work that has to be done. And we just need a lot. We need a lot more people that are in those big buildings in DC to listen to what we're saying and understand how important it is, because at any point in time, it could be you. And that's the sad thing, is that when you talk to politicians and things like that, and you look on their desk and they have kids and 5 kids and 6 kids, and you think, I don't want to use that. But the reality of it is, it wasn't us until the day it was either. And any of these kids. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, like going back to decoding of the genome. Like if you looked at what are the genetic and molecular markers within your daughter's, brain tumor and the tumor samples that you have, and then what's out there that could be used, or is there something that no one's even thought of? But if you don't study it, then you don't know. You continue to do the same thing. So completely. And please mention the legislators' kids or the staffers' kids, because it does. I think we do have to make it personal. It is personal for us, but I think you do have to make it personal, if at all possible. I think it helps.
I think it does. And, there are several. I mean, number one, when the kids are speaking to the representatives, that has such a bigger impact than you and I yelling at them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's big. But the other side of it is that we really need to show the real and true side of what pediatric cancer is. And I've said in the past that if the commercials you see on TV resembled what you saw from like the ASPCA, people would listen, right?
Yes.
People would listen because it's honestly the images you see of the happy smiling kids is so few and far between when they're going through this in day-to-day life, and in those moments are not as they don't happen as much as you would think they do.
Right.
And they're not happy to go to the doctor. They're not happy to go and get these treatments.
Yeah.
They're happy to see their favorite child life specialist maybe, or their favorite nurse that, they can talk to and they become friends with. But that's because they're incredible at their jobs and they make it not as scary.
Right.
But they're not happy to go.
No. And I think when we see them a lot of times, unless we're seeing them in the hospital, they are happy to be out of hospital. And they are, the thing that I've learned from y'all as cancer families is, you embrace life to the fullest and you don't wait because you know how precious the time is. So they do. And the resiliency of these kids, I mean, I can't tell you how many kids come to rally events straight from the hospital. And they've just had, like a bone marrow aspiration, or they've just gotten chemo, or they just had radiation for, round, 20 of 36 rounds. And I mean, and they just are so resilient, but they're going to grab life and enjoy life. And, I remember meeting a rally mom for lunch, and she had her kid who I think he just had an infusion. And we were in the parking lot. I mean, you can totally relate to this, I'm sure, Kirsten. I mean, he threw up all over her, all over himself. She popped open her trunk. She changed his clothes, changed her clothes, changed her top. And I was like, oh my gosh. She goes, okay, you ready? I'm like, ready for what? And she goes, aren't we going to lunch? I was like, oh my gosh, if that was my kid, you'd be home on the couch, you'd have popsicles, you'd have, but it's just like, you just keep going, which is just absolutely speaks to the resiliency of the kids and the families. And also, I don't want to miss life because I don't know how much longer I have this time.
Right.
And so I think, getting the lawmakers to understand that time is what's precious. And when you lose a kid, it's an average of 70 years of life. And the average diagnosis of the big, of lung, colon, and prostate cancer is around 66. And then if someone dies from that, you're probably looking at 12 years. So 12 versus 70, like how can we get that message to be clearer so that people, grasp and understand it better. But yeah, it's a lot that goes on. And if you could play a, Sarah McLachlan commercial about childhood cancer, I don't even know how people could. It would be so painful to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, it would. And at one point, and maybe it'll still happen, another family that we're very close to, we talked about creating one and posting it. But what I can guarantee is that social media would probably censor it or take it down because it would be too real and it would be too graphic. And, and I've said before, I have photos on my phone from when our daughter was going through everything that I've never shown anybody. I have stories that I've never even shared with my wife because, I did all the inpatients with my daughter, and it was a very, very hard time. And a lot of things happen that if we could truly show you what really happens or what they really feel like, or all of the things that are going on, what this chemotherapy does to their bodies, what it does to their mental health.
Oh, yeah.
If we could show you that, I think more people would say, we really need to do something about this. Like this has gotten out of hand. And
you're making a great point because honestly, I probably have been a part of the prayer circle for William for at least 6 months. And I had seen him out of the hospital. But I'm telling you, when I saw him in that hospital, Curtis, I was like, I shook me to the core. I was like, wait a minute. This is nuts that this is your reality. Like, it wasn't like I had never been involved with the Olsons or with William. I had. But when I saw that in the hospital and just how sick he was, I was like, like dinner, we're past dinner, you know.
Mm,
But you're right. I've never thought about it like that. Like it wasn't until I saw that I was like, wait a minute,
yeah.
this is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've said that in the past that, we're all kind of guilty growing up in life, not realizing that if you go to the hospital for, something that you need to have stitches, or maybe you have a broken bone or something like that, that,
Right.
4 or 5 floors above you, there's children fighting for their life up there, and you have no
Yeah.
idea that it's even a thing.
Right.
Or you see the commercials, right? And you think, wow, that's terrible. I hope I don't even know what I would do. And when you become that family and you become, part of it, you're like, now what do we do? Because honestly, a lot of the diagnosis happens to families that are not even connected in any way to cancer in
Right.
general.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're on an island and trying to
Yeah.
figure it all out. I'm grateful today that I've made so many amazing connections and met so many great people that I could always reach out anywhere that I needed to, and I can pass those on to other people. But, on January 30th of 2020, we had nobody. We had
Yeah.
nobody to talk to, nobody to reach out to. Everything was so new to us. And now you get the comment, I don't know how you guys do it. How are you guys so strong? Because we weren't given a choice.
You don't have a choice. Yeah.
Right. We were thrown
Yeah.
into this,
Yes.
and now we're just trying to move forward, and we're trying to kind of rebuild our life. And the support is another thing. Support kind of goes away. Whether your child either rings a bell or if they pass away, that support
Yeah.
goes away. And I will argue to say that that's when we need the support the most, is because now we're trying to rebuild our life or figure out a
Yeah.
way to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I see both those things happen. And I see cancer families that if their child survives and rings the bell, some of them are like, I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this anymore, which I think is fine. And I think that you need to respect that. And some of those families come back around, after, a few years or 10 years, and some don't. And then those families, I hurt the most for the families, like your family who loses a kid, and then the support is so strong and they become your community, and these supporters become your dear friends, and the doctors and the nurses and the child life and all of that. And then, after the funeral and the celebration of life, it just gets so quiet, and I think it's just, that's one thing at Rally. We really always tell our families, we're here you're part of Rally for life, like for life. And I think that's so important, because I think it's another hurt that gets like piled on top of so much hurt and pain that's there.
Yeah.
And the other thing we try to teach our staff, and we try to teach our, supporters is, say the child's name, especially if the child's passed away. Like, please say JC's name. Like, it's not like, and if you have a story about JC, please share that story.
Mhm.
And, like we had a Rally kid that loved Spider-Man. And sometimes, I'll just be in the store and see like something Spider-Man, and I snap it and I send it, to Michael and June and go, thinking about Grant. And I think just letting them know that, you haven't forgotten their child, and you're not afraid to say the child's name is so critically important. And also to share like how much that child touched you and changed
Mhm.
you as a person is really important. Yeah, I think that we can do a lot better as a community and as a nation to, remember that, and to say their name, just say their name,
Mm.
and share your memories.
Yeah. And it and honestly, that's another, that's another line that a lot of people don't cross. They're afraid to say something, right? They're
Yes.
afraid to ask
Yes.
you about your child.
Yes.
And that's part of the support going away. And I had one of my best friends in the world that I thought, this guy is going to be my ride or die no matter what. He was the first person to call us when we were in the hospital. And as soon as she passed away, he disappeared. And the last thing I heard was, well, he didn't know what to say to me. So the best thing he could do is just say nothing. And that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. It's yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think that's an education of, like our society in general, that it's, people who lose someone that they love, and especially a child, like you want to hear their name, and you want to share that memory. And I always do say, I tell families, I said, you're going to be just shocked who doesn't stand by your side, but you're going to be equally as shocked as who does stand by your side. And just be grateful for those that stand by your side.
You will learn, in this community, and what I've noticed too is that you will learn is that the closest people to you are probably not going to be blood. And they will stand by your side and they will be there for you no matter what. And this is a community that nobody ever wakes up in the morning and says, I want to join that community. Right. But I promise you that and I've said it before, I will go scorched earth for any family in this community. Anything that you need, I'm here for you. And if I can provide it, I will do it. And if I can't, I'll find a way to make it happen. And really, it's not about, like I said, it's not about having the most connections or the most this and that. It's just about being a real person and a true person. And these children will change your life. If you have the opportunity for 5 minutes to speak to one of these warriors, I promise you it will change your life forever.
Yes.
Because they are just so incredible. Their hearts are genuine. Their hearts are innocent. They don't have hate in their heart for anything. They don't care about politics. They don't care about any of this stuff, and they will change your life forever. And the reality of it is everybody should spend a day with a warrior and just allow them to dictate what you do. And I promise it's going to give you a perspective you never thought you'd have.
Could not agree with that more. Could not.
And the support thing is really something that I wish was different. But I will say that when you're part of, and I love talking about JC. I mean, I love telling her story. I love, anybody asks me about her. I mean, I was just telling somebody at work a few weeks ago, and, I always say, how many kids do you have? Well, I've got an 18-year-old in college, and I've got a 16-year-old. She's a junior in high school, and I've got an 8-year-old. They hear the age difference, and it's like, wow, what is your 8-year-old? And it's like, well, she's in heaven, and it's immediately, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask. It's like, you don't ever have to apologize. Like, I want to talk about her, and I want you to hear her name. And, matter of fact, the first year I went to CureFest, I had a shirt that I printed on the back, say their names. And I had like 30 kids' names on the back, because it's so important that matter what, just scream it out, say their names, being able to walk across the stage and say JC's name. I hate that group of people that are standing. It's so much bigger than the group of people that are sitting every year that we go to CureFest. But I love being able to say her name, and I love hearing everybody say her name.
Yep. I love that. And I do think when you say, like, I have an 18-year-old and I think it was 14 or 15, and then I have an 8-year-old, and saying, no, I love that I get to tell you about her. I think that helps to make people feel more comfortable, to hear, and also sometimes I'll say, like, think about it. Like, if it was your child, you would want people to talk about your child.
Mm-hmm.
You love to hear people talk about it. You love to hear people talk about your 18-year-old and your teenager at home. I mean, that's always, for the most part, we love it, as long as they're doing okay. We're a teenager, but you know what I'm saying. So it doesn't change. Yeah, but I love say their names. I preach that all the time.
It really is an incredible thing, and I think that everybody should be a part. Like, when we talk about CureFest and people ask, well, what is it about? And do you have to be part of this community to be a part of CureFest? It's like, no, you get to come and be a part of it because you can see what an amazing community can be when they all come together for the same cause.
Yeah.
And, some of us are there because we've lost children. Some of us are there because we're researchers, or some of us we're friends of people that are, the connections and how it spreads out, and the kind of the family tree, it goes very, very far and wide.
Yes.
And I love being there. The only people that I wish were there on those days that are not there is the media and our politicians, to see it firsthand, because we're so close. We're in DC. We're like in the media capital of the world. Everything's happening 100 feet from where we are. And we know that the politicians see us out of their windows. So, but those are the ones that we need to come down there, not because they're more important, but because they have the ability to make these laws and make rules that are going to make the ultimate difference. And, and to be honest, also, I'm a big fan of more funding coming for pediatric cancer from the government. And even when they say we've doubled it to 8%, I still think that sucks. That's horrible.
Well, yeah, it's very grateful. And I very grateful for the community, because the battle cry more than 4 is what moved the needle. And then having people that would go and advocate on the Hill, very, very important. And I am so glad they doubled it. The new challenges is 8% is not enough. It's the number 1 disease killer of kids in America, and the years of life lost when they die is 70. We need more. We're very grateful for the 8, but it's still not. It's still not. And that, we need to keep up that battle cry. We need to be grateful for what they've done, but a lot of that is through the advocacy and the voices. And I would encourage listeners who, if someone is listening and they go to CureFest and they do have a relationship with, a member of Congress, just getting their staffer to come would be huge, because the staffers, people don't realize it, but the staffers, a congressman or woman staffer, senators, staffer, person who works for them, they have a ton of influence over the member. So just getting them to come would be huge. Just getting their staffers to come and see it. And they'll go back and they'll tell their bosses, hey, I went to this thing. It was incredible. So maybe next year we should talk about everybody try to get a staffer there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that, we do a lot of the work with the Department of Defense at Rally, and it's the staffers. It is, you love having a member support you, but the staffers are key. They are so important.
That's 100% true. And that's once you ever reach out, to, a member of Congress, whether it's local or whether it's federal, you're not going to get that person to respond. You're going to get their staff or their chief of staff, their chief of communications, whatever. Their interns that are going to be the ones that are going to be reaching out to you. Those are the ones that I had their personal cell phone numbers, and I was texting them and saying, this is what I need from you, and that type of stuff. Those are the ones that have the influence. That is so true. And if you walk into one of their offices when you're doing either climb the hill, or if you're going just to your local, you're speaking to the staffers in the front. Don't toss them aside as people. You know what I mean? Those are the ones that you need to win over, so that they say, you know what, I need to walk into his office and tell him how important this meeting is right now, and that kind of stuff. So they are hugely influential, and that
our country is run on 15-minute meetings. I laugh about that. I'm like, we're run on 15-minute meetings. And you want your 15-minute meeting, and that could be a whole different, we could do a whole nother webinar on that, podcast on, how do you really speak to a legislator, and how do you really, advocate, and what are some of the best practices. But number 1, top of my list, staffers are your best friend, because the staffer has the ear of the member. I don't think you're going to go talk to any member in Congress and tell them how dreadful childhood cancer is and have them not go yes, this is horrible. Oh my gosh, and break their heart. But they have a system that they follow. And part of it is, what are the staffers bringing to them, and what are they hearing? And, you've got to have the staffer backing you 100%.
Right.
We should really think about doing a thing where we have a goal to get X number of staffers to CureFest on Saturday night.
That's fan. I'm all for it. What if I can help? I'm all for that, because the more that we get, the more that we have, because it's those personal experiences. We were there again this year with a couple of families, and we went to meet with a specific Congress member from their state, and number 1, had no idea what September was, had no idea what CureFest was, had no idea what the Childhood Cancer Caucus was. And it blows your mind, because it's number 1, you're part of the same state that caucus was created, without giving it away. But also, the buildings aren't that big, and you're in the same rooms at some point. You figure these names or these things would pop up, and it just, they're oblivious to it unless it's affecting them personally. But again, I see children on your wall. I see children on your desk. It could affect you at
Yeah.
any point in time. And I don't want it to. Like, I don't want,
No.
part of this is never about getting people to understand how we feel personally. It's about getting them to realize that it can happen at any moment without reason, because we don't understand why pediatric cancer happens. We don't understand. It's not like lung cancer is from smoking or liver cancer from drinking or it's like, we don't know. My daughter was diagnosed with brain cancer. She was negative for Leaf-Romani syndrome, negative for the TP53 gene mutation, which are the only two things that really indicate that type of tumor.
Wow.
Nothing. And it makes no sense, right? And there's other children that are diagnosed with this. Well, what about their environment? What about their food? Yes, these things can be factors, but we don't understand why. And you even look it up, even on the NIH or websites or things like that, that'll say that it's mainly misunderstood. We don't know why.
Right.
And so therefore we need the research to figure out how we can catch it early. Because I'll say, we early detection is huge for, let's say, breast cancer or prostate cancer, things like that. But it's not really a huge talking point for childhood cancer. It's more or less because a lot of times by the time they've detected cancer, it's stage 4, it's terminal.
Right.
And,
It's metastatic.
what could we have done to do something sooner? Well, the misdiagnosis rate is horrible for kids' cancer. And I know for us, it was months and months and months of being told she had constipation. It's, with others, it's months, especially with, let's say, Ewing's, it's months and months of being told, well, it's growing pains, it's bone pains and things like that. What are we doing? Why are we're not, and I understand that doctors are not going to say, okay, these symptoms line up with leukemia, but it also could be this. Let's not freak the parents out and go right to this, but maybe give them the understanding that it could be this. Do you want us to move forward? And I don't know, my connection with doctors is kind of 50-50. It's not, I don't think that they want to not cure things, but I also don't think that they want it on their record if it goes badly. And that's, it's a personal thing. And I think that they truly want the best for their patients. I really do.
They totally do.
But I think they're overloaded at the same time, and
They are overloaded.
this is so prevalent now.
Yeah.
It's, and I know everybody tells us it's rare, right? But it's so prevalent. It's so bad.
I think if you shut down, I think almost every cancer is probably rare, honestly. But when you shut it down into like the individuals, yes, it's rare. But when you look at it holistically, it's not rare. I think breast cancer has done a great job of, when it comes to educating the public. They only talk about breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't talk about, like, there's 6 main types, and then under those 6 types, there's 24 subtypes, and then we have all these, we have 50, super duper rare ones. But they've gotten the country to care about breast cancer. And
Right.
I think we're doing a better job as a community to get people to care about childhood cancer. A long ways to go, but we've made great progress in talking about it as childhood cancer. I do think, I think the first rally you came to that we did the Capitol was when we were inside, when there was the monsoon.
Yeah.
And we asked people, that was great. And we asked people to, what are your top 5 priorities for, for members to hear. And one of them that ranked pretty high was the education of primary care physicians and pediatricians, to just be looking out for that. Because I think when they, I don't think any of them want to misdiagnose or delay a diagnosis. It's just, like you said, not kind of necessarily top of mind for them. But what is some low-hanging fruit that they could look at to see is, if this isn't constipation, is there something low-hanging that I can do in case this is something else?
Right.
Or, why does a 2-year-old, head lean to the left, and do they seem to, cry out in pain? And, I think there's a whole educational component that could be done for
Absolutely.
primaries. Yeah. And it was high. It was pretty high on the list of, what the community thought was important.
Yeah.
For doctors to do.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest with you, whether it's diagnosis or treatment, I mean, they can only work within the toolbox that they have, right? And
That's it.
And, for obviously for all of her symptoms, they lined up with constipation, but there was some that didn't. And it was one of those things where once one major symptom happened, and then my wife did the one thing that you are not supposed to do, which is get on Google or WebMD, and the first thing that pops up was brain tumor. And I said, no, that's not what we're not going that far,
Yeah.
we're not doing that here. And I remember that when the diagnosis came, or when we were told we had to rush to the hospital, our pediatrician called us and apologized. She said, I am
Yeah.
so sorry that I did not catch this.